Hey friends, we are here in Acts chapter 21. Acts chapter 21 is not a very long chapter, but it says something that I think is very important. So, what happens is, basically, this is the very end of Paul's third missionary journey. And from here on out, I wouldn't call his journeys missionary journeys anymore. I would call it more like prison ministry. But what he does here is he leaves Asia and he comes over to Caesarea. And there, people tell him, we don't want you to go to Jerusalem. Bad things are going to happen in Jerusalem. The Holy Spirit has told us. And so Paul is like, yeah, I know. But I'm going to Jerusalem anyway. And then when he gets to Caesarea, this is Philip the evangelist. He is one of the seven from earlier in this book. He was one of the Hellenistic Jews in Jerusalem, back in the beginning, that was set to distribute food. Anyways, he has 4 daughters, and I guess all 4 daughters had the gift of prophecy, and so they are prophesying, and they're saying it's gonna be bad news for you when you go to Jerusalem. And he says, I know. And then one more time, this guy, his name's Agabus. And Agabus, we know about him from earlier. He was one of the head men in Antioch, also a prophet. And he was the prophet that prophesied that there was going to be a famine. And so the church in Antioch kind of took up a collection, or they prepared for the famine. And then they brought a bunch of food back to Jerusalem for the church in Jerusalem. So he had a good track record as far as his ability to prophesy. So he comes over and he takes Paul's belt and he binds his own hands and feet. And he said, the owner of this belt is going to be bound just like this. That's what the Holy Spirit tells me. And at some point, Paul says, you guys are breaking my heart. I know this, but I'm going to go. The Holy Spirit is telling me that I need to go. And we know now, we know from reading the rest of the book, we know from reading the rest of the Bible, that God is going to do amazing things through Paul. And he's going to do it through his suffering. He's going to do it through his imprisonment. And he's going to do it through Paul's eventual death. This is the way that God decided to do it. And Paul was all for it. He was saying, this is what I have to do. I know it's going to be difficult, but he says later on, he writes a book to the which church is it? He writes to the Philippians. Paul writes to the Philippians, and he says, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. He was already setting his thoughts and his mind on heaven, on being with God and being with Jesus. And he saw nothing in this world of any value except for doing what God asks and telling his word. So that's what's happening here in Acts chapter 21. And I forgot to mention that at the end, he does go to Jerusalem, and they do bind him, and they do kind of set him before the people, and they're wanting his head. They're wanting him dead. And so he is just about to give a testimony. And so it kind of ends as a cliffhanger. It's kind of like, he's like, look, I want to speak. And the guy says, well, can you speak Greek? And he says, yeah. And he's like, aren't you, the guy didn't know exactly who he was. He was like, aren't you this guy from Egypt, from the country that was trying to start an uprising? And he said, no, I'm from Tarsus. I'm not some backcountry guy. I can speak Greek. They were speaking, everybody in this area was speaking Aramaic. But it's interesting because once he started speaking, he didn't speak in Greek and he didn't speak in Aramaic. He spoke in Hebrew because he was speaking to the Hebrew people. So that is Acts chapter 21, kind of a cliffhanger. It says in the end, and then he said, and then you have to hear the next one. So you can hear about that tomorrow. All right, have a great day. Bye.